It's 6 p.m. now, Cairo local time. It's a very good evening to our viewers and welcome to the evening's English News Bulletin here on Channel 2. My name is Angie Meher, joining you for the evening. We begin straight away with a look at the headlines. President Abdel-Fattah el-Sisi arrives in Madrid for talks with Spanish officials over bilateral ties and mutual coordination. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbuli holds a press conference with visiting Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković at new administrative capital. Gaza ceasefire talks between Egyptian, Qatari, Israeli and U.S. mediation delegations in Cairo conclude in success. Welcome back. Now the details in full. President Abdel-Fattah el-Sisi on Tuesday arrived in Madrid in Spain on an official visit for talks over bilateral ties and coordination between the two sides. During his visit, he is to meet with Spain's king, the country's prime minister, and representatives of Spanish companies. The president is also due to take part in an economic event with the Spanish business community. The presidential spokesperson, Ambassador Mohammed al-Shinnawi, said the visit will also include signing a deal for upgrading ties to the level of strategic partnership, as well as a number of memoranda of understanding in various fields of cooperation. Officials said Egypt and Spain are working on boosting economic ties, noting that Cairo is removing obstacles facing investors and offering investment incentives. The Spanish government has also stressed that it will continue to support businesses looking for opportunities in the Egyptian market. Several members of the Egyptian community in Spain gathered outside the residence of President Abdel-Fattah el-Sisi to welcome him on his current visit to Spain. Raising Egyptian flags and photos of the president, the gathering community members expressed support to the Egyptian state and appreciation for President Abdel-Fattah el-Sisi in his efforts to enhance the nation's development and maintain its stability. Moving to the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbuli, who said there is a significant cooperation between Egyptian and Croatian companies in the field of energy and gas. He was speaking during a press conference with the visiting Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković following their talks in Cairo earlier on Tuesday. Madbuli attended the Egyptian-Croatian Business Forum following their joint conference. Details follow.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbuli said there is significant cooperation between Egyptian and Croatian companies in the field of energy and gas. He was speaking during a press conference with visiting Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković following their talks in Cairo earlier on Tuesday. Madbuli said there is significant cooperation between Egyptian and Croatian companies in the fields of energy and gas and this green energy. He said both sides share common views over regional and international issues. Madbuli said Croatia is a strategic ally for Egypt in the European Union, and he added that both sides are working on founding direct flight lines between Egyptian and Croatian cities soon. For his part, Plenković said discussions focused on boosting ties in various fields. He said that 3 MOUs in the fields of culture, investment and harbors were signed on Tuesday. He added that the Joint Economic Forum aims at opening the way for new investment fields for entrepreneurs in both countries, and that talks also tackled developments in the Palestinian territories and the Egyptian suggestion for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. He reiterated that Croatia values the role played by Egypt to deal with developments in Gaza.
Welcome back. A well-informed source said the latest round of talks held in Cairo over the ceasefire deal in Gaza between the Egyptian, Qatari, Israeli and American delegations have concluded in success. The source said mediation efforts by Egypt and Qatar secured the release next Saturday of the remaining Israeli captives and Palestinian prisoners as part of the fulfillment of the ceasefire deal in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Hamas group said it will free 6 living Israeli captives Saturday and the bodies of 4 others on Thursday. The 6 to be released on Saturday are the last living hostages to be freed under the first phase of the ceasefire in Gaza. Egypt postponed an emergency Arab summit on the Gaza Strip that was scheduled on February the 27th till March the 4th. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement on Tuesday that the summit will be held in Cairo now on March the 4th to allow for further logistical and objective preparations for the summit. The statement added the new date was fixed after coordination with Bahrain, the current chair of the Arab League, and other Arab countries. An Egypt news correspondent at the Rafah border crossing said that heavy equipment and ready-made houses began entering the Gaza Strip on Tuesday. Large areas of the Palestinian enclave, including roads, were devastated by the Israeli bombardment during the 15-month war. Bulldozers, trucks and excavators will help in removing rubble and pave roads ahead of reconstruction efforts. Their entry came as a result of successful Egyptian and Qatari mediation efforts. The Israeli occupation army pulled out of southern Lebanon villages but remained in 5 strategic positions as a delayed withdrawal deadline expired Tuesday under a ceasefire deal. Top Lebanese officials denounced the continued presence of the Israeli troops as an occupation and a violation of the deal that has been in effect since November 27. The Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, said the Israeli army will stay in a buffer zone in Lebanon and 5 control posts to guard against any ceasefire violations by Hezbollah. Lebanon's army, meanwhile, announced it had deployed in southern border villages and areas from which Israeli occupation troops have pulled. Several parts in South and East Lebanon, as well as Beirut, have suffered heavy destruction during the Israeli bombardment that has intensified in late September and continued for 2 months following cross-border hostilities. Top diplomats from Russia and the United States met Tuesday in Saudi Arabia to discuss improving ties and negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine. The talks reflected a major and rapid change in American foreign policy under President Donald Trump. No Ukrainian officials were present at the meeting, which came as Kiev is slowly but steadily losing ground against more numerous Russian troops in a grinding war that began nearly 3 years ago. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country won't accept any outcome from this week's talks if Kiev does not take part. Meanwhile, European leaders insisted they must have a say in international talks to end the war in Ukraine, despite the clear message from both Washington and Moscow that there was no role for them as yet in the upcoming negotiations. 3 hours of emergency talks at the Élysée Palace in Paris left leaders of Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Poland, Spain, the Netherlands, and Denmark, NATO, and the European Union without a common view on possible peacekeeping troops. The meeting came after a U.S. diplomatic blitz on Ukraine last week threw a once solid transatlantic alliance into turmoil. Turkish police have detained 282 suspects accused of ties to the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, known as PKK, amongst them journalists, politicians, and academics. The raids of the last 5 days took place of the ongoing regional cooperation in the field of energies to empower countries to benefit from its resources and infrastructure through partnership between Egypt, Cyprus, and Europe. This came during a meeting of energy and competitiveness as part of a series of meetings held on the sidelines of the 8th edition of the Egypt International Energy Conference and Exhibition, Egypt's 2025, to boost and develop Egypt's energy sector. The Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, asserted that the state's efforts in the economic reform program and the financial policies reform have contributed to the increase of private sector investments. Her comments came during the El Ola Conference for Emerging Economies final session held in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mashat pointed that the stability in the total economy is crucial to boost international and national trust in the economy and implement policies that decrease inflation and achieve general financial sustainability. Egypt's stock markets collectively surged at the end of trading on Tuesday, boosted by purchase operations. The benchmark EGX 30 rose 0.2%. EGX 60 index for small and medium shares and the broader EGX 100 both rose 0.2% and 0.3% respectively. Meanwhile, the dollar firmed on Tuesday as traders weigh tariff worries, geopolitical uncertainties, and the path to U.S. rate cuts. The euro was 0.24% lower at $1.04575. The single currency rose last week as optimism grew over prospects of a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. Sterling eased 0.1% to $1.2611. Investor focus this week is also on Wednesday's release of minutes of the Federal Reserve's meeting in January that may show how policymakers have accounted for the risk of a broader tariff war resulting from President Donald Trump's trade policies. Dollar index, which measures its performance against 6 other major currencies, was 0.2% higher at 106.94. Moving to the exciting world of sports, Bayern Munich striker Harry Kane was absent in training, but head coach Vincent Kompany played down fears of a serious injury and was hopeful he'd be available for Tuesday's Champions League playoff second leg clash against Celtic at the Allianz Arena. 6 times European champions put themselves in the driving seat while securing a 2-1 victory over Celtic in the first leg in Glasgow last Wednesday. 31-year-old England captain, who scored 29 goals and provided 10 assists in 30 appearances across all competitions for the German Giants this season, suffered a facial injury in their 0-0 Bundesliga draw at Bayer Leverkusen early on Saturday. Striker Robert Lewandowski scored a first-half penalty to give Barcelona a hard-fought 1-0 home win over Rayo Vallecano on Monday that moved them to the top of La Liga standings. Barca took advantage of Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, dropping points over the weekend to leapfrog them from third place to the top of the standings. Barca are level on 51 points with Real, but ahead on goal difference. Atletico trailed both by a point, whilst in-form Rayo Vallecano are 6th on 35 points. Barca just did enough to keep the 9-match unbeaten streak in the league, leaving them fuming over several controversial decisions by the referee. And finally, with some weather news, the Egyptian Meteorological Authority said that warm weather is expected to prevail tomorrow during daytime over Cairo, Lower Egypt, the northeastern coast, Sinai, and northern parts of Upper Egypt, whilst northwestern coast will see moderate weather. However, it will turn cold at night all over the country. Here's a look at the expected highs and low degrees in Cairo and other governorates. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our English news bulletin here on Channel 2. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Thank you for watching.